When I was getting started in the world of investing, I wanted nothing more than for somebody to just show me every single step of the way exactly what was going on so that I could learn from them, write it down, and copy it. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys the EMD lending process. Every single step that I take, everything that I've learned from 100 plus lending transactions so that you can copy it hopefully yourselves and learn sooner rather than later what the heck is going on. Let's get into it. What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ryan, and if you're new here, I'm just a guy that makes money, loses some money, does that a couple times, and then shares it with you all so that you can maybe learn something from it. Today I'm going to be talking about the EMD lending process, every single step that I take from all of the lending transactions that I've done and all the things that I've learned along the way so that you can hopefully follow suit. So let's get into it. We're going to start with step 1 in the lending process, which is the most important thing to get any of this rolling, of course, and that's leads. Leads, right? And I've done plenty of leads videos. You can check out my main leads video right up here, wherever it is on the screen. Watch that first if you don't already know, but we're going to start after you've gotten a lead because that's not actually a part of the process. That's like the pre-process, right? So we're getting our lead. And when we have our lead, what I do is I have a text come through. I've got an email that comes through. And these things are basically saying, alert, we've got a lead. We need to go rapido to get this thing done because it's all about time, right? So I've got a lead come in. What am I doing with a lead? Well, that's really what step 1's all about, and that's gathering information, right? Whether you're using a form or I guess an email or even a DM or something, if you have to, you're just trying to gather information. And the information that I'm gathering, as I've talked about, is the following. First of all, we're going to get property details, right? We need to know what this EMD is actually for, what property. That's obviously important. Then the next thing is personal details. Personal details are crucial. And I want to say, with personal details, when I say that, if you, for example, brought me a deal that wasn't yours, you were just connecting me. Fantastic. I'm really glad you brought the deal. We're going to make money together. I have an entire referral program, but I don't want your details on the actual form. I need the details of the person that I'm going to be working directly with because I need to be able to interact with them. We're not doing like a cat and mouse type vibe here. So I need the personal details of the person that is actually borrowing the money. They're the ones that are going to be on the hook. They're the ones that are on the contract, so on and so forth. So I've got these two things. Now we start getting the actual info. So first of all, we need the EMD amount. I need to know how much money it is I'm actually going to be lending. I need the inspection period. Crucial. So that I know how long the EMD is protected for. I need to know COE, or close of escrow, which is just when the transaction is actually going to close. And then I'm going to gather a couple documents. I'm going to gather the wire instructions. This is usually going to be like a PDF type file with some numbers on it and stuff. And then obviously the contract itself. And I say obviously, but actually I didn't used to collect the contract when I first started. I used to just take all this other stuff, take it as law, and kind of rock with it, and then I would find out the missing pieces here and there along the way. That was stupid, so learn from that. Don't do that. Get the contract itself. The contract verifies all of this stuff, right? When you get the contract, first thing, obviously, check out those property details. Make sure that you guys are on the same page. They didn't tell you it was 123 Main Street, but now the contract has something else on it. You're going to be confirming all of this stuff, so you're going to confirm your EMD amount. You'll confirm your COE. And then you're going to confirm your inspection period, which is, in my opinion, the most important thing that we'll talk about. And to confirm the inspection period, it's usually, like, for example, when they submit this form, they're going to tell me the inspection period is on, let's say, April 1st, right? But that's not actually what the contract is going to say, which is really annoying. You know, now that I think about it, maybe we should just change the contracts to say that. But they don't. They usually will say your inspection period is 10 days or whatever. I guess the reason is because you never know when the person's actually going to sign. All right. So it makes sense. But anyways, you want to figure out what those 10 days actually are, right? And so I'm looking at this contract, and then I'm looking at the inspection period, and I'm trying to match the two things up, make sure all of that information is validated. So that is our information gathering process. I do all of that through a form on my CRM, takes all of that, puts it onto a card, jumbles it all together so that I have it all in one place, and I can make sure that everything makes sense. And that's step 1, is simply gathering the info. Now, step 2 is going to be a bit more personalized because step 2 is determine if it's a deal. And the even more important part of this step is that we're not just determining if it's a deal, we're determining if it's a deal for you. Right? So everybody has different things that they want to lend on, different risk tolerances, whatever it may be. And just because it's a deal for me doesn't mean it's a deal for you guys, right? Maybe I'm going to go do a $250,000 EMD, whereas your limitations say that you only want to do $5,000 or less. Perfect. This is where you determine that, right? And it's not necessarily even that you have to kick this person to the curb, but maybe you determine it's not a deal for you and you can connect it. So again, going back to that example, because I think it's pretty common, right? Maybe you only want to do $5,000 deals or less. Somebody brings you a huge deal and you say, hey, this is not a deal for me, but let me send you to Ryan's referral or somebody else, I don't care who it is, somebody that can fund that EMD. You'll make some money off of it, but you know that it's not yours. And so this is a crucial step that needs to happen really quickly. You need to have that, lending box, I guess you would call it, predetermined and understand what the heck is going on so that when this deal comes in, you can really quickly say, yep or no, this is not a deal for me, because that person is relying on you to either fund their deal or turn them away as quickly as possible because they're going to be on a time clock and they want to get that figured out. So step 2, determine if it's a deal for you. Once you get past that, we'll get into the fun stuff. So step 3 is going to be contracts. So for me, what happens is immediately after I determine that something's a deal, my CRM sends the contracts out to the person that's requested the money so that it happens really, really fast. This is all like bang, 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 all happening really quickly. But the contracts get sent out, and those are going to be getting signed by them and by me, and we're going to be breaking down a couple things in the contract. So the first thing I do is I have a JV agreement that basically establishes me as the borrower's partner, right? It establishes us as equals in the eye of the title company so that I have the same rights they do. I get included in the conversation, all that good stuff. So the JV agreement's in there. Then we're going to have like instructions, which says stuff like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is who I am. This is the money I'm lending, like little stuff like that, just for escrow. Then we're going to have scenarios in the contracts, I call it, which is like, if this, then that, right? So if the thing cancels, then that. If it gets extended, then this. If there's a default, then this. We'll cover the scenarios. That's kind of what contracts are for. And then obviously our agreement on like payout. So we're going to have signatures in there that say I lent you $1,000. You agree to pay me $400 back or whatever it might be. That's all getting covered in the contracts. And that is our opportunity to see eye to eye with whoever's borrowing the money, right? So this is our opportunity where we say, hey, yeah, we're signing off on this, 40, 50, whatever percent return for this EMD. We're signing off on the fact that if you don't get that money back, that there's going to be interest getting accrued on it and all this other stuff. This is when we're going to really try and see eye to eye and make sure, hey, not only did I submit this request, but I'm agreeing to move forward with it so that I'm not wasting my time, right? I'm not going to go spend any more time. If there's any questions whatsoever in the contract phase, I'm not going to go waste my time doing anything else until we make sure that we get that stuff straightened out and are on the same page. So once we are on the same page, assuming that we're on the same page, or once we get there and we get past the contracts, we're going to go to the most important step of all, which is title co-communication. And this is going to look like a couple different things. So the first thing that I do is I email contracts. So I'm going to email the title company contracts. It's going to have obviously me in the email. The title company is going to be in there. The borrower is going to be in that email thread. And I'm going to send them our contracts with a big list of questions. And these questions are all centered around making sure that myself, the borrower, and the title company are all on the same page. Because no matter what is in those contracts, the only thing that really matters, sadly, is whatever the title company thinks about those contracts and how they interpret them, right? So I can't just assume because those contracts get sent in that anything's going to happen. In fact, most of the time, title companies don't even read the contracts, in my personal experience, unless you actually make them. So I send them a list of questions, and I have a free email template that I use for my list of questions. It's in the Financial Foundations community. If you guys haven't already joined, check out the link for Financial Foundations. It's just a free community that I made on Skool for people to network and learn more about lending, do different challenges and stuff like that. So I've got that free. Here, let me put it in there. Free template is in Financial Foundations for you guys to all have, and that'll go over all of the questions that I'm asking them. But just some bullet points for you. So one of them is going to be, the biggest one is going to be the inspection period. And again, going back, the problem is that there's some ambiguity on inspection periods on the contracts. And so we want to say, hey, we think the inspection period ends on a Tuesday. Do you guys agree? And if so, does it end at 5 o'clock? Does it end at midnight? What is the exact timing, right? We're going to get this in writing. We're going to get other things in writing like how to cancel, how to get it back, how to get the EMD back, and so on and so forth. EMD back. This is all incredibly important because I want to get all this stuff in writing. I want to make sure that we are on the same page. We're in agreement with everything that's going on. And we are going to be crystal clear in a bunch of different scenarios that could or could not happen throughout the transaction so that there is no questions. There's no like, oh, we weren't expecting this to happen. It's, hey, we know exactly what's going on. We're very clear about this because we got all this stuff in writing. So emailing the contracts, that's the first thing with title. And then the second one that I'll throw all the way down here is we're actually just going to call title. And sometimes I might actually end up calling title prior. Like, for example, if I send this email and they're not getting back to me really quickly, I might just go ahead and hit them up because I want to make sure that we're moving this thing along. It's usually a speed thing. But usually they'll get back to me pretty quickly as long as it's, normal working hours. And then I'll call the title company. And calling the title company is going to do a couple of extra things. So we talked about when we're gathering information, making sure that we get the wire instructions, right? And calling title is the way to confirm wire info. Because there's a lot of fraud out there. There's a lot of times where, the information that you get is not actually accurate. It's not actually going to the title company's bank account. It's going to, some random scammer or whatever. So you want to make sure that you're actually calling the title company and confirming that wire info. It's crucial. And little tip for you. If you get somebody that submits a piece of paper, a sheet, a PDF, whatever, with wire information on it, I would not recommend calling the phone number on that sheet, because if it's a fake sheet, then it's probably a fake phone number on there, and you're just going to call one of their friends or whatever that's going to pretend to be a title company, and you could still end up getting scammed. So don't do that. I would recommend you just look up the title company on Google, find their actual website or page or, whatever, and call that phone number and confirm. So confirming the wire info is the main point of that call. The other thing that you can do on that call is just confirm that the file is open. And the reason why that's important is because oftentimes title companies have multiple branches, and sometimes those branches are going to have different trust accounts, different accounts that are holding the money. And so, I live in Jacksonville, right? So if there was 2 title companies in Jacksonville, I wouldn't want to wire it to the wrong one, because then the one that's actually handling the transaction won't have any record of the money. It's not lost, but it's in the wrong place. So you might as well confirm that when you call title as well. So this is our conversations with title. Again, very crucial that we make sure that this all gets done, and you need to make sure that you are communicating, specifically with the title company on this stuff. Okay, so we've had our discussion with title. Now, step 5 is the belle of the ball. This is the most important thing for everybody in a transaction, because step 5 is straight up wiring the money. Right? We got to get that money sent if we're actually going to make this thing happen. And if you've confirmed that you're protected, confirmed the contracts are there, confirmed all the information, then you don't have anything else holding you up, and you need to get that money sent ASAP so that you can make sure that this transaction gets done for them. So wire money is a big one. If you're newer to the lending world, everything gets done in wires. There's 2 different types of transfers that you do at a bank. There's what's called an ACH and a wire, and then there's also an international wire, but we're not dealing with that stuff. So the ACH is going to be something that actually does not work for any transactions in real estate. And the reason is because usually ACH transactions are slower, but you can also actually cancel an ACH transaction. So for example, I could tell somebody I sent them $1,000 and send proof and then cancel it. And so title companies don't allow that. They only allow wires. And typically a wire is going to be anywhere from like $25 to $50 from a bank, depending on which bank you're using. Mine, I think the 2 banks I started with, it was $25 for Chase and $30 for Wells Fargo, I believe. So pretty expensive. If you're doing, one deal, then nobody cares. But if you're doing a lot of deals like I was, up to, 20, 30 plus transactions at a time, that crap adds up. I actually just finished doing my taxes for last year, and we spent over like $1,100 on wire fees. So kind of wild when you think about it. So I do not anymore do wire fees that high. My wire fees now are $5, and actually they've gone down to 0, and I'll tell you why. And that's with Relay. So you guys have probably heard me talk about Relay because they are amazing. Relay Financial is the bank that we use, and they just allow me to move money in and out so quickly. And they actually have a program called Relay Pro that allows you for $30 a month you get unlimited transactions with no wire fees, right? So if you're doing the math over here, $30 a month, it's $5 per wire typically. So that means 6+ transactions and you're good to go with Relay on paying for that Relay Pro. So I do that now since I have so many transactions, but obviously start with the free thing. Relay is free to get signed up for and it's super great. So check Relay out. There's a link down in the description for Relay that has, I think, $100 if you put $10,000 into your account for like, I think it has to be in there for a week or a day or something like that. So pretty simple. If you guys don't already have a bank account, highly recommend setting up a business to bank account with Relay for all those reasons and the fact that they actually understand small businesses. It was made for small business. So they keep it easy. So that's wire in the money. Now we're going to go on to step 6, which is always a fun one because step 6 is communication, the ultimate life skill. And communication is key because although we have now wired the money, there's still a lot of things that can happen, right? And the expectation anytime somebody borrows money should be that they are communicating every step of the way with somebody that lent them money because they lent them dang money, oftentimes a lot of money. And so they should be communicating with you. However, they oftentimes will not. And so even though you would like them to, you need to assume that they won't, and you have to carry the burden of communicating with them. I have that stuff kind of mostly automated with my CRM, but either way, whatever you're doing, you have to make sure that you're communicating to make sure a couple things. First of all, that everything's on track, right? The program's going the way that you wanted it to. They've either wholesaled the house, found a buyer, or they've got their lender lined up if they're buying it, or, it depends on who you're lending to, but whatever the situation is, you got to keep talking to them. Because what you need to figure out is which path you're taking, right? And there's 2 paths here on communication. The first is if the transaction is going to get canceled. So when you have that inspection period coming up, you need to figure out, is this thing going to be making it past the inspection? AKA, is my money now being replaced by somebody else's money? So if it's a wholesaler, it'll get replaced by the end buyer. If it's an end buyer, it needs to be getting replaced by a private money lender or, whatever type of lender that's going to come in, a gap lender, something like that. But that money has to be protected if you're not going to cancel. Prior, when you signed those contracts and spoke to title, you confirmed the fact that you have the right and the ability to cancel a transaction if you need to. And so the communication on a cancellation is, hey, wholesaler, buyer, whatever, your inspection ends tomorrow, ends, on Friday, whatever, and I have not heard from you that this transaction is going through. So FYI, I'm going to be canceling your transaction if you do not respond to me, right? So it's incredibly important that they do, right? Especially if they have a plan and they just suck at talking to you. But you have the right to cancel that thing if not. So you got to reach out and get that canceled. But let's go with the others since that's actually our process, which is, success, right? So the transaction's actually going through. We're good to go. Now what are we doing? Well, if it's going to be a successful transaction, then that means you're going to get paid, right? And if you're going to get paid, then you need to do a confirmation of the HUD, which is like the closing statement or the ALTA statement or whatever. The HUD is what outlines where all the money is going in a transaction. And if you as the lender have lent money on a transaction, then you will be on the HUD. Your company name should be on the HUD with the EMD amount getting returned to you, plus the return that you agreed on. This is always a fun part because, again, even though we've communicated, even though we've spoken with title, confirmed the contracts, it gets passed off to somebody else. Nobody's paying attention, whatever. So I get HUDs all the time where I'm not actually on there correctly. All the time. And that's why this is important. They'll send you what's called a preliminary HUD, and you'll check that thing out and say, hey, this thing does not have my name on there anywhere. I sent you guys a contract. It says this, this, and this. You need to get it corrected. So you got to confirm that HUD, and you got to go back and forth with them until the HUD has all the information that you need on there, right? Once you do that and the transaction is going to close, then they're going to call and confirm your wire info, which is the exact same thing that you did to them, right? Earlier, we called them and said, hey, is this your wire instructions? Now they're going to call you and do the same thing. Or sometimes they might send a check. I frown upon checks strongly, but it happens. If they send you a check, then they'll call and confirm your address. So basically the same thing. But that's the process of communication on if it's successful, is just making sure, basically you're just babysitting them. You're like, hey, I've shared this info with you 10 times, but I'm going to check again and make sure that you're still listening, still following along. We got to babysit the title company and the wholesalers, especially sometimes on this, which is fine. Not ideal, but it works. And so you got to make sure that that communication is there. And that should close out your successful transaction and get you paid. So the last step that I want to talk about, and another big one, as always, is repeating the process, right? This is huge, right? We do not want to lend for somebody, make money with them, and then just let them go on to the next person. We want to make an impression that, hey, we're a trustworthy lender, we're going to get the job done, and we want to keep working with you, because that is 1000% how you scale your lending business. And so if you want to have repeat business, then you have to provide a service that's worth them coming back to you for. And a couple things that are going to happen with that is, first of all, just straight up having money, right? So if I tell somebody I can lend on a $250,000 transaction, they come to me for a $250,000 transaction, and then I don't have the money, I'm not making a very good impression, right? It's not looking too good. Speed, big one, right? If I tell somebody I can lend on the transaction in a day, and they come to me and say, oh my gosh, I really need help getting this thing lent on by the end of the day, I got to follow through on that. Other things is stuff like systems, right? Which I have a lot of people come back to me saying that my systems were just so smooth. I knew exactly what was going on. I was very clear in literally everything we just talked about, right? I was very straightforward and clear about all of that stuff. They want that because that means that they can trust you and they can tell you have experience, you've done this before, all that good stuff, right? And the reason why my systems work so well is because pretty much every single step that we just talked about, so gathering the information, confirming the buy box, sending out the contracts, sending the email to title, I have all of that stuff automated because I have the Gator program on Button Leads. So if you guys don't already have Button Leads, definitely check them out. I've got a link for them down below where they do a free call, kind of like a discovery call or whatever with you as well. Because Button Leads has a full Gator build out that I use, and I impress everybody with those systems that I didn't even build, and that gets me more deals as well. So that is our last step in the process, is just repeating. Let's do a quick recap on the entire thing here. So step one is going to be gathering info. Or as I said before, it's really the lead, but the main part of that is gathering the info. Step two is determining if it's a deal. This is going to depend on the person. Determine. That's going to depend on the person, right? On whether or not it's a deal for you. Step three, send contracts. Make sure that you and the person that is borrowing the money are fully on the same page when it comes to the return, defaulting, all the different scenarios. Then we're going to talk to title and make sure that we are on the same page with them. We agree with everything that's being read and stated in all of the contracts. Then we're going to send money. That's going to be done via wire transfer. We're going to communicate and ensure that the transaction either gets canceled or gets to completion properly. And then we're going to repeat the process. Go back up, right? So that's our 7-step process on lending earnest money. This is the process that I have developed after 100 plus transactions. So I hope this video was helpful. Maybe you even learned something. That would be a miracle. If you have any questions, go ahead and throw a comment down below. I'll check it out, maybe make another video or respond if I can. And if you guys haven't already, definitely check out the free Financial Foundations community on Skool. Jump in there, get involved, network with some people, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.